Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're continuing learning in the book, which is called LIkuti Torah. LIkuti Torah. Here's a picture. It is. See this nice thick book, LIkuti Torah, written by the first Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, about 250 years ago. And in it, he explains what God is and what a Jew is, and what the world is here for. And especially how the Torah puts the whole thing together, puts meaning and life and blessing and happiness and purpose into everything in the world, especially in us, and how we Jewish people are chosen to inform the world of this fact, that God is creating everything, and he's creating it according to the Torah, and people should act according to the Torah in the world to make this world a perfect, beautiful place, and to stop thinking so much about themselves. Okay, so here's an example in this week's Torah portion of how the if you take the Torah, the soul of the Torah, the inside of the Torah, not only the outside of it is important, like a person, right? What's the most important thing of a person? A person's body. His body is important. You know, you can't, that's the person, right? You don't say, Uncle Joe just came into the room. I don't see him. Oh, his soul just came in, not his body. The main thing, of course, is the body, the outside, and the soul is enlivening the body, but you have just have a soul. There's no world, no person whatsoever, which is not the case. If you have just a body, maybe you can resuscitate it, maybe you can give it electric shock or something and bring it back to life. Excuse me. All right, so yesterday we learned that God is putting a blessing in front of everybody. This is also the theme of the Devar Malchut that we're going to learn, the writings of the present Lubavitcher Rebbe, if you want to go. Okay, so here we go. So says the Rebbe like this: every Jews are special. Jews have this special connection with the creator of the universe and with the Torah and with the world. The Jews are connected to the inside. Then in this inside goes deeper and deeper and deeper. Says this, a person has to think about this. A Jew thinks about it as he can reveal this inner level of his soul, which is called Eitan. Eitan. And this level of Eitan is the essence connection of a Jew's soul with God, with the creator of the universe, Eitan. And therefore, the word Eitan means old, ancient, because it's above time. And also, Eitan means powerful, because this gives the power to the Jewish people to be what's called a stiff-necked people, to serve God despite all odds, despite all opposition. That was like Abraham, that was our inheritance from Abraham. The whole world was against Abraham. He was the only Jew in the world. And he basically, not only was he not affected by the world, he affected the world. That's the whole job of the Jew. So it says, that's what it says in Maskila Eitan Ezrachi. This is the level which will shine. Ezrachi means I will shine in the future with Mashiach. But now, as it is now, as everyone is suffering from temporary insanity, craziness. Where is this? What is this over here? Here. In the future, this is going to be revealed. Which is now the case now, the Ruach Shtut. There was a temporary insanity which covers over the whole world, and no one can see what God is. No one can see yourself. You can't see who you are. Right? It's like a person going to a library and getting out a book, how to cut off your hand. Right? They got a big saw and say, what are you doing? Says, oh, that's not my hand. It's somebody else's hand. You're crazy, out of mind. Same thing for people to cut themselves off from God. That's not my God. It's just, God of the Jews, somebody else. Religious people. That's insane. So says the Rebbe, the fact of the matter is health is what's called bittul. When a person is totally surrendered to the truth, right? Like your car, everything is working properly. You don't, when you're driving your car, you don't hear the pistons, you don't hear the distributor, you don't hear the what is the carburetor. As soon as you hear it, then you got problems. The same thing with your body. As soon as you feel your heart, you feel your lungs, you feel this, you got problems. Whenever that's called bittul, everything is in harmony, running properly. That's good. Says the Rebbe, that's the whole idea of this yud, this eitan, chachma. And this is the essence of God, the essence of the Creator. And that if you connect to this level, you've got harmony. You do what you're supposed to do. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to use your free will properly. It's not that you automatically become a zombie. You use your free will properly. But like a person that's healthy, he uses his free will properly and he doesn't cut off his arm. A normal person doesn't take a saw and cut off his arm. But you can go to a person and say, hey, why aren't you cutting off your arm? So what are you talking about? Say, you haven't got free will. You're a coward. Use your free will. Come on. Be a man. I don't understand. What are you talking about? Take a saw and cut off your arm. What's the problem? What don't you understand? It's the most simple thing in the world. Take a saw, cut off your arm. That's all. Why should I do a thing like that? Because you can. What do you mean you can't express yourself? Be different. Be who you really are. Don't go along like a sheep with everyone else. Look at all these people not cutting off their arms. You be unique. That's insane. Thinking like that is crazy. Says the Rebbe, the whole world thinks like that. The whole world, in fact, does it. They cut themselves off from God purposely, with intention, because they can do it. Says the Rebbe, that's insane. But who's at fault? The Jews are. If the Jews would just educate the world properly, like the Rebbe is doing, then the whole world would realize what a healthy person is. We wouldn't be trying to separate ourselves from the truth, from reality, from integrity, from honesty, from love, from respect, all these good things. Health. Okay, says the Rebbe, that's the letter Yud. Then when you think about this, you think about who you really are. You think a Jew thinks about really who he really is. He's connected to God. He's the son of God. He's the servant of God. And like I said before, the Jews are chosen to bring this to a whole world, but they have to get it themselves. That's what the Rebbe is doing in this book. So when a Jew starts thinking about that I've got a creator, and the creator is creating the whole world. The creator is creating me. I'm being created for a purpose. And he starts to understand this a little bit. That understanding is represented by God's name. God made us in his image. God's image is also in us. What's God's image? Yud is this level of Eitan we talked about, this level of Chachma, this point, a flash of truth. And Hey is understanding this. When you understand it. When you understand it, then it becomes useful. Then it becomes, you say, practical. Practical. It becomes relevant to be practical. Hey means understanding. Understanding. You start to understand that I'm a Jew. You understand not that there is such a thing as God. You understanding a little bit, at least about what it means that God. That's what this whole business is. We're learning over here, trying to understand a little bit and bring it into ourselves. Then there's another step. That's only half of God's name, right? That's the upper world. So Bechinat Vav. Then there's two more letters of God's name, Vav and Hey, and that's also in our personality. I'm sorry, excuse me. Ubechin is Vav, the letter of Vav of God's name. So we already talked about Yud and Hey. Yud is this level of Eitan, the essential connection above understanding. Hey is trying to bring it into understanding something. Then there's the level of Vav. What's the level of Vav? This is what's called Nachal Eitan. This is called the river that comes from Eitan. Shebechinat Eitan. It comes out from this level of Eitan, from this essential connection we had before to God that's brought into understanding. That Yud and Hey are never separated. And from them come this letter Vav, which is the river. Vav is like drawn down, right? Yored Bechinas Nachal. There comes, wow. This level of Eitan, Shebechinas Eitan, this level of Eitan we talked about before, there comes down, I'm sorry, I left out a letter. Shem mi bechinat Eitan, that from this level of Eitan that we said before, Yored comes down, bechinat Nachal. There comes down a river of reality. Bechinas hamshacha, drawing down, lamata, below, lamakom, to the place, midot, the emotions of the heart. Shenechalkin l'shish, that are divided into 6 levels. Right? So from this I say concept of God, that's Yud, concept, and that comes into understanding. That's the letter Hey. There comes emotions, and there comes emotions. Okay, let's just have an example, right? You get a check, and the check is written out to you, but you don't know how to read, and you lived in who knows where in the African jungles or something. You don't know what a check is. You don't know what money is. You don't know what nothing is. All you know is what food is, and you go out and you catch, once in a while you catch a monkey or something and you eat it. And that's your life, that's a monkey, a honey or something. And you eat it, and that's what's good. All of a sudden you come to a place, you see there's meat all over the place. You go to stores, meat, you don't have to go hunting into the bit. There's honey as much as you want. How do you get that? You have to have money. How do you get money? You work. So he works and he gets money. He says, don't give me this money, give me honey. He says, no, you can take the money home. So now somebody comes along and says, here, instead of giving you money, I'm giving you a check. What is the worst? What's this check? Good news, you won. I bought a lottery ticket for you, and you just won $1 million. Here's your check. So the guy doesn't know what are you talking about? What's a lottery and what's a check and what is he talking? He says, well, what's valuable by you? By me is valuable meat and honey. That's what's valuable. That's what I like. Meat and honey. He says, okay, listen, with this check, you can go and buy a whole store full of meat and a whole, whatever it is, a whole full of meat and honey. That's what you want. He says, I don't believe it. I don't understand what you mean. So first of all, you have to explain to him, right, that how it is you go into the store and you give him this check and people just are amazed. And so he gets the idea. That's the idea. The idea is you can have this piece of paper, and with this piece of paper, you can go and buy meat and honey with it, right? So he goes home and he takes a piece of paper, goes to the store and says, give me meat and honey. They don't know what you're talking about. So what's going on? It doesn't understand what's going on. So then explains it to him. They explain it. They explain that this is a check and that there's money in the bank and that there's this. So now he first of all, he's got the concept that it's possible you can give a piece of paper and people will give you what you need. That's the concept. Then after that, he starts to understand it. He starts to understand it. Oh, I understand. This is the money is over there, and this represents this, and this represents that, and this is my. And then he sees this is my signature. That we'll talk about. What's dot? Dot is he realizes it's really true. This is his signature. This is his name. And then he gets excited. Wow, this is really mine. I don't believe it. This is real. First of all, he had to have the concept. Then he has to have the understanding. Then when it really connects to him, that's the thing of dot, das. When it connects, then he gets excited. It's really mine. It's my check. It's my money. I can buy it. That's the emotions. And then someone says, but you better watch out because somebody could steal this check from you. Oh, then he has love. He has fear. He has all these emotions, right? This thing is valuable. I have to watch it. So then after that, he does it. He goes out and he buys whatever he does. He uses it. The same thing is over here with God. The only thing is that God is infinitely more valuable than he creates all the money, creates everything. But let's take it for this person that was from the jungles. He's just as far away from God as he is from this check. He doesn't understand either one of them. So let's take our case. Here we're in the world. Did you know that God keeps us alive? That God gives us meaning? I didn't know. I don't know such a thing. First of all, you think about it. You get the idea. That's what the Jewish people, that's this level of a yud. The idea. Then you start to understand it. You understand the idea, right? How this is really relevant. You think about it. You understand. That's what the Rebbe's talked about over here. Think about it. All of a sudden, you think about it. Oh, you start to understand. Yes, God creates the world. Then all of a sudden, this is not he's creating the world. He's creating me. Suddenly, it becomes relevant. Oop, that's that. Then you get emotions. Anytime you have something valuable, you realize it's value and you realize it's you, that it's mine, it belongs to me. Then there's emotions. That's what's called the vav. Then you start to get emotional. You start to love God. You start to have fear of God. You have to have awe of God. That comes below into the emotions of the heart. That's divided into 6. That's the letter Vav. Vav is the gematria 6. Lahav comes and it transforms them to kedusha, to holiness. You start realizing that's what was really valuable in the world is God and the godliness in the world. The money, the value of money is the godliness that's in the money. What you can do with the money according to Torah. You can give charity, you can help people out, you can feed your family. You can build a place of learning, you can donate money to synagogue, to the yeshivas, right? To help the poor, to help all orphans. Money is great. Money is amazing because you can do all these wonderful things to fix up the world with money, right? Dressing nice. You dress up nice, people will respect you. They'll respect you. They'll come, look, I put on tefillin every day. Oh, really? You do? Yes. Well, now it starts to become relevant. You drive up to the whatever it is. You drive around in a brand new Lamborghini or something like that. People respect you, right? You come out, you're a religious Jew, right? A religious Jew, the people will say, oh, well, this is a good thing to be a religious Jew. And you're friendly, you're nice. You can use everything in the world for holiness. And then there's just things that you use just between you and God that nobody knows about. That means getting emotional. You bring the ideas that you have about God into emotions. And afterwards, that's the letter Vav. Then after there's the last hey of God's name, that's machshava dibur u'maisa. That's bringing it into your thought, speech, and action. She'em neged gimel kavim. This corresponds to the 3 lines which are on the hey, in the hey achron, and the last hey of God's name. So this is another meaning of the idea that we are made in God's image. We're made in God's image. The 4 letters of God's name correspond to these 4 aspects of our soul. Chachma, Bina, emotions, and action. We said over here, that's like Eitan and Nachal Eitan. And is Torah. This is Torah Shabbat Peh. This is what's called the oral Torah. Malchut Karinalo. What's the oral Torah? What you actually do, what you should actually think. The written Torah is it's mystery. It's a code that's given in mystery, right? You can try to figure it out yourself, and you'll 99.999% you'll be wrong. What it says. That's what the whole Talmud is for. Great holy rabbis that interpreted the Torah, and they got godly ideas to interpret the Torah, and nevertheless the law is not like all of them. All of them are the word of God. That's the idea of the Talmud. That tells the Jews what to do, what you actually do. Without that, every man for himself. There's no law, there's no right, there's no wrong. There's no understanding of the 10 commandments. Everybody makes up their own interpretation. That's Torah Shabbat Peh. That's the end. Malchut Krinalo. That's the kingship of God is revealed through the Talmud. The Gadol Talmud and greatest Talmud because it may be Leidei Maisa, because it brings to deed. There's a big footnote over here. It skips down to here. And all these 4 levels, Yud, K, Vav, K, and God in your soul, and your Muslim, which are hinted at in the name of God, like we said, Yud, and then I say K because you're not supposed to say God's name. Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav, who is in Kabbalah the Torah. That's what happened when the Jews got the Torah, but Dibur Anochi Hashem Elokecha, when God at Mount Sinai said the first commandment, which was, I am God, your God. I am God, your God. That's what the rabbis say about Uber Bebeten, about a fetus in the womb of the mother before it is born. That's how the Tanya starts off, right? This is the whole thing in the Gemara Nida. Ner Daluk al Roshel, a candle is lit over his head. Umalamdim oto, and they teach him kol Torah kulo, the whole entire Torah. And then it says, and he's given an oath, be a tzaddik and not a rush. That's how the book the Tanya starts off. From this oath. It says that a child in the mother's womb, they teach them the whole entire Torah. What's this? This is the name of God. How is the name of God? The Ner de Lukal Rosho, this candle, the flame that's on his head, this is the letter of Yud, of the name of God. Umalamdim, they teach him all the Torah. This is the first Hey. I'm sorry, the whole Torah, that's the last Hey, I'm sorry, of God's name. So it comes from the highest to the lowest, is all being presented to the child before he even comes into the world. Lo melachot, to tell you, shekol inyan mibechinos elo, that all of the 4 levels of this, of the name of God, from the letter Yud until the letter Hey, malamdim oto, they teach the child when he's in the womb, Jewish child. Kedei liot, in order that there should be to him. That's why it depends on the mother. Another reason why. If the child is in the womb of a Jewish mother, then they teach him the whole Torah. If he's in the womb of a non-Jewish mother, then he's not Jewish. Malamdim oto, they teach him kedei, in order liot lo, that they should be achar leida, so after he gets born and he goes out into the world, yoter nakal, he should more easily tefisa, grasp, bekalita, and to absorb in his heart, in his brain, and in his heart. What's going on here? Listen, when God gave the Torah to the Jews at Mount Sinai, so he said the words, I am God, your God. These words, it said, are eternal. And we learned the Sikha, remember the Sikha, the Rebbe, we learned last 2 weeks ago, that there was no echo. And the Rebbe explains, what does it mean there was no echo? The voice came out, there was no echo, that it permeated everything in the world. Nothing stopped it, not in place and not in time. And not in soul. Everything and everyone felt these words, I am God, your God. Everyone felt, and it permeated every detail of the world as well. Everything in the world is now permeated, not just the fact that God is creating it, but also the fact that God is creating it for a reason, for the Anochi, the essence of God. And everything in the world, it's there. But then a Jew comes into the world, and the world is dominant. It says that the godly soul only enters a Jew completely when he's 13 years old. So he's got 13 years where he's just a normal person like everybody else. And that's not what God wants. So God gives, the world is too powerful. So what God does is he teaches the baby all of the Torah before it's born, male and female. So that when it comes out, because the Torah really is the blueprint for the world. The Torah is there before the world. The Torah, like we said, is eternal, and it permeates the whole entire world. Right? Don't ask why is it that God created the world in such a way that it conceals the Torah. That's just what rose up in God's mind. That's what he wants. If it wasn't for that, then there wouldn't be any world. There wouldn't be any challenge. There wouldn't be any purpose. That God would suffice with the angels. So God, the world is too powerful. So what God does is he teaches the child the whole Torah in the womb before it comes out to make it a little bit easier to absorb the ideas of the Torah and that they should be meaningful, especially the Talmud, which implies that you have to do what it says in the Torah. But why should I live according to a book? I have my own soul. So therefore, God imbued it in our soul, the Torah. So that the Torah, we feel the Torah is not just part of our soul. Our soul is part of the Torah. But that's too grandiose. Before the soul comes in the body, God teaches the whole Torah to the soul, from the light that's lit on the head until the finally the lowest action that there could possibly be. That's the Torah. It says teaches in the whole Torah. That he comes into the world, that it should be able to be brought into reality. But Omer Azal, the rabbi, say that in the time of exile, Ein Hashem Shalem. God's name is not complete. All this beautiful stuff we just talked about, that the child is taught the whole Torah, and the Torah is God's essence, and the Torah is in the world, and the Torah reveals good in the world, and etc. And that the Talmud explains to us exactly what to do. So here it is in front of us. That's only in the time when there was a holy temple. But nowadays we're in exile, so everything is messed up. The God's name is not complete. I know, what does it mean? That these letters, which means getting emotional about God and bringing it into action. Hey, mufradim, they are separated from the letters Yud and Hey. In other words, nowadays a person can understand God, and he can get inspired by God, and he can have the Yud, which is the inspiration, and the Hey, which is the understanding of God, and it doesn't come into his emotions at all. He gets excited about the world, money, pleasures. You know what the world is. That's how it is now. That's exile. That's what exile means. Exile means that there can be Jews that they're aware of God. They can even write books about God and books about Kabbalah and everything like that. And they don't do anything it says. It's not personal. It's just intellectual. It's an idea, like ancient, Phoenician culture or something like that. That's called exile. It doesn't come into the Vav, which is the emotions, and Hey, which is actually doing, thinking, saying what God wants. So what are we supposed to do about it? Is the name of God is broken inside of it, that even though that a person thinks, umamik, and he deepens his mind, but godless Hashem and the greatness of God, umamik dato, and he tries to deepen his connection. That means his connection. And his bittul, and he becomes really negated to God, which is above understanding, like we talked about before. And as you do everything that's said in the first paragraph we had over here, first two paragraphs, in calls in, nevertheless, eno poelis lios nimshach balev. It doesn't come into his heart. Lahafech amidos, to transform his emotions, ahava v'yira, love and fear, bizgalos, in a revealed way in his heart, karish ve'esh, like a fiery, flaming fire, the tshuka l'Hashem, and a desire for God. Levado alone. V'hainu b'sivas agalos, because of the exile. So he reads the Torah, he goes and he learns. What does he get excited about? About the soccer game. The soccer game is on Shabbos. Soccer is more important than Torah. I mean, that's more important than Shabbos for sure. I mean, what is Shabbos? Shabbos is just a day. It's just a day like anybody else. If a person, let's say he sleeps too long, he wakes up, he doesn't know what day it is. You can't tell which day is Shabbos automatically. Don't know what Shabbos. A soccer game, you can tell. What's the question? You look at the soccer game, you see the two teams, you know which play is. Hey, this is what's it called? The World Cup, whatever they do. This is the whole World Cup takes over my cup. The cup means head in Yiddish. Most important thing there could possibly be. What about Torah mitzvahs? Torah mitzvahs I do 364 days of the year. For the fifth day is the day of the big day. Right, soccer. That's just an example. There are some people that their Achilles heel is Shabbos. They can't keep Shabbos. It's impossible for them to keep Shabbos. And Shabbos, they make money, and money talks. Money is real, right? Judaism is nice, 100%. I like it, but money, not only that, you go to synagogue, you make the good business deals, and meet your partners. The world is too real. The world is too real. It's too actual. And it's not bad to have money. It's not bad to have all these things, but everything has to be according to the Torah. But he says, listen, the Torah is here for me. I'm not here for the Torah. I'm willing to do what it says in the Torah if it appeals to me. But if it doesn't appeal to me, I'm going to do things for the Torah. So that's what it means. That really what his real emotions are in, the vav and the hey of his soul, that's attached to the world, that's attached to himself. It says, how are we supposed to get out of this? It says, circumcise the foreskin of your heart. Ubir Indian explanation. Now, there's some people also, then you got religion. What's religion? Religion says, what are you running after the stupid things of this world for? You got heaven. You go to heaven, you get infinite pleasure. So that's, in a way, just changing a little egotism for a big egotism. Now I'm going to get the real big reward. And usually people that do that, they're also conquered by the world as well, because they're thinking about themselves all the time. So who knows if I'm going to get heaven or not? But the money, for sure. An explanation is, it says, it says that God will circumcise your heart. But another place it says that you have to circumcise your heart. You must circumcise the foreskin of your heart. And there's another place where it says that God will circumcise your heart. So who's going to do it? Me or God? I'd rather God do it, because I don't even know what you're talking about. What am I supposed to do to circumcise my heart? Let God circumcise my heart. He says, don't worry, he'll do it. But you have to do it also. What am I supposed to do? We have to understand the mashma that it seems, the mila zu, this circumcision of your heart, will be from God alone. Hari ne'amar, but it says that you should circumcise your heart. Who's going to do it? Me or God? The answer is, this level of foreskin, which covers over the heart. It says you should circumcise your heart. This foreskin that covers over the heart. This is physical pleasures, selfish pleasures. That's the foreskin that covers over your heart. This is what separates between the Yud Hey of God's name and the Vav Hey of God's name. What do we say? Yud and the Hey, that's understanding, comprehending God intellectually. But Vav Hey means emotionally, your heart. This foreskin is what makes it covers over the heart, so that there won't be any love for God. Because what is this foreskin? It's the world. This depends. How do you remove it? God can't do it on his own. You have to do tshuva. You have to be willing to have God remove your inordinate connection to the world. Ela b'tshuva. Tshuva means what? Tshuva means returning back to God, returning to your senses. Or like it says, your sins separate between you and God. It says, Nargan Mafrid Olav. It says that what is it, a hatchet or something? It separates. Huli. But that's what separates you from God. That's that. So in order to remove that, you have to do what's called tshuva. Tshuva means you have to return back to your true identity. You're a creation of God. You're a Jew. You're a son of God. You're a servant of God. King Solomon explains that we're the friends of God. Rayoti, we're the wives of God. We're unified with God. We're twins with God. But God has to come somehow into the picture. But we can only, we have to turn around and face God. That's what's called tshuva. Turn around and not think about ourselves so much, not think about the world so much. Think about the Creator. That's called tshuva. But the inyan is kalos atzmios. If you want to reveal this essence level of love, there's two levels. There's what's called the outside of the heart and the inside of the heart. Hainu shidgala avoto, that the love that you have to God, that you reveal by turning and facing God and thinking about Him, doing tshuva, it'll be so great that you totally surrender yourself to your Creator, and you won't feel any love. This is the essential point, the umka from the essential depth of the heart. This is like a son who loves his father so much he gives his life for his father, right? He gives his life for his father. What does the son get out of it? He doesn't care about that. It's a type of a love which is above any sort of personal benefit or reckoning. A person If there's something that's important to a person from the essence of his heart, like I said, a son and a father, that all of his life depends on this. This is what we said. This is the river that comes from the Eitan. What does it mean? Eitan, I will be given. Which will be in the future. Eitan, I will give. Then in the future, Mashiach. It says, it says that if you, in the Chumash, we'll learn soon. If you are pushed, God says in the that it promises the Jews that if you are pushed away to the ends of the earth and even to the ends of the heavens, I will bring you. God says God will bring you personally. That God will do you, benefit you, and He'll increase you more than the forefathers, than Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That you'll have more of a revelation of God than they. He'll circumcise our hearts. You'll be higher than higher, in a high level, even more than the fathers Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Like it says, it says about Mashiach, consider my servant. There's a prophecy in Isaiah. Consider my servant, elevated, high, exalted, very much. Yoram, higher than Avram. It says Nisa, higher than Moshe, higher than King David, higher than Elijah the prophet. It says, then Kasiv, it says, then God will circumcise your hearts. The idea of Mashiach is Mashiach will educate the world. That's the Rebbe is the Mashiach. These are the teachings of the Mashiach. Excuse me for the squeaking moment. The Rebbe is the Mashiach, and he's teaching us how to open up our hearts, how we can turn and face the creator of the universe and get excited about the creator of the universe, only the creator of the universe. That's what we have to do. We have to circumcise our hearts. Then, that's the first stage of Mashiach. He teaches. Then the second stage of Mashiach is that he'll bring about that God reveals himself and changes us. We see that this can happen, God forbid, for bad. That a person's life can change in just one moment, right? A person gets a toothache, God forbid, his whole life has changed. He can't think, he can't do anything until he gets the toothache fixed, right? Nothing whatsoever. Some people I know, one bad thing happens to them, they go through a divorce, they go through something, lose, God forbid, they go through a divorce, they lose somebody who they love, right? And they're in one instant, their whole life just changes for bad. Terrible, right? There's other people the opposite. There's born to them a son. There's born to them all of a sudden somebody they know gets healed. They're so grateful. Their whole life has changed. Right? They change. We can say that people's personalities are very frail. Unfortunately, we saw this in World War II. What happened with the Germans? The Germans went berserk. They were all, right? 99% of them were just inflamed with taking over the world, and they didn't think about how many people are being killed. All of a sudden, what happened, right? You go there now, people can't figure out what happened. They're ashamed of it. But a person can change in an instant. That's for bad, but also for good, right? Napoleon came along, changed all the French people. They went out and they fought with, right, the fun-loving French. That's for bad, but for good, it's the same thing. We have to work from below. We have to think about God. We have to consider God. We have to long for the revelation of God in the world. That the world, they should stop being all this disease and sickness and idolatry and wars, famines, lust, hatred, lies. And it should stop. The world can get along without all these addictions and things like that. They're very fine. And that's going to have to come from above. There will be a revelation from above that God will remove the inner foreskin of our hearts. He'll change our hearts for good. It'll make us stop being so selfish. Listen, what is selfishness? Selfishness essentially means you live totally in the future or in the past, whatever it is, right? Totally in the past. It's good to live in the future. Good, the future gives you hope. It's good to live in the future for 100%. And it's good to live in the past also. You learn from the past, gives you wisdom. But the main thing is how do you utilize this positivity for the future and the wisdom from the past? It has to be used in the present. A person that's an egotist, usually he lives in the future. Usually. He lives, I want more. I have to have more. He looks at the next door neighbor, he just won $1 million. I want 2 million. I want 3 million. But he's never satisfied with what he's got. That's called the foreskin. The foreskin blinds you from seeing what you've got right now. The main emphasis should be doing good, thinking good, speaking good right now. With the influence, with the wisdom, with the lessons, whatever, the positivity that you get from the past and the future. But you can't do it if your heart is covered over by this foreskin of selfishness. So therefore it says, first of all, you have to you have to remove the external selfishness to take yourself away from bad things. Then God will circumcise the inside of your heart that you can really feel good things. It says, Mal Hashem et levavecha. That's why it says you have to remove the foreskin of your heart. That's what you have to do. When it says that what God removes, it says God will remove, that God will circumcise your heart. It doesn't say the foreskin of your heart, but your heart, namely, shakol bechinas achitzonis alev, all these levels of the bad side of your heart, the egotistical part, yimol letzeis min ha'elam elagiloi bechinas penimius, then you'll be revealed. The inside of the heart will be revealed. The true inner connection to God, then everyone will be truly healthy. And the Rebbe will continue this tomorrow. Zem anu morchen, that's what it means when we say Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavorach, we say Kaddish. May your great name be blessed for ever and ever for all the worlds, which we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow. Meanwhile, try what you can to think about the creator of the universe that's creating you. Try to feel the truth of it. And try to bring it into your emotions. That's called circumcising your heart, bringing it into your emotions. Not so easy. Little by little, works little by little. And God willing, with all of our efforts, all of a sudden Mashiach will do the rest. Hoop and circumcise, not just to remove the foreskin of our heart, but to open up our heart itself to the oneness of God. Okay, let's now learn. One second, we have a question over here. There won't be more physical pain, no more backache, leg pain. I don't think so. I mean, I'm not that big of an expert on the thing, but it seems that everyone will be healed. Eventually, there's going to be stages, and I never saw it exactly explained when these stages was to come. It says that 40 years after Mashiach reveals himself, there's supposed to be the raising of the dead. What it means revealing himself, I don't know. Maybe after the Mashiach builds the temple, could be, the holy temple, could be. But I don't think that there'll be any sickness at all. How much more? No pains, no this. But a lot of these pains we can get rid of even right now just by thinking properly. A lot of them, not all of them, by thinking properly and taking less medicines and things like that. A lot of it, not all of it. Like I told you before, the Rebbe told Rabbi Klein once, one of his secretaries, he had a big pile of letters, and he said if people would just learn the chapter about trusting God in a book which is called Duties of the Heart, Chovat HaLevavot, if people would learn Shara Bitachon, and that half of these letters wouldn't be here. Right? Most of people's problems is because they don't really trust in God. Most of the problems, right? That doesn't mean you should go jump in front of cars on the street and just trust in God. But what it does mean is that in your life, you should remove worries. Worries eat people up. It says worms eat a person up after he dies, and worries eat a person up when he's alive. Okay, let's learn the Devar Malchut.